We cannot assume that our children will go out in a world that has been planned to be the best for those children. It is not going to supply these children with the type of environment which will conserve their emotional resources, give them calmness and peace within themselves, and assure them a moderate degree of success without the terrible competitive pressure that destroys health. What society is really producing is instruments for the advancement of its own purposes, quite aware of the fact that these implements and instruments are going to be destroyed by society, but that they are expendable, and that there will always be a new generation of young and hopeful persons to take the place of those that are destroyed by so-called social pressure. To face the situation, then, means only that the pressure problem must be solved by the person. It will not be solved by the school system. It will not be solved by science. It will not be solved by sociology. It will not be solved by industry or politics or economics. It will not be solved by raising wages or increasing insurance premiums. It will not be solved by the multiplying of social benefits. The pressure problem is the interval between what man wants to accomplish and what man can accomplish. And this interval widens every day because his mind is capable of visualizing a kind of world that his body is not capable of building, that his strength is not capable of maintaining. So the person has to take over the administration of his own life. He must decide what he can do and what he cannot do. He must decide to the degree that he wishes to commit suicide to maintain the psychic pace of his contemporaries. He must decide to what degree he wants to be sick in order to be successful. He must try to decide what his standard of living is worth to him, what he wants to have out of life, what he expects to achieve in the span of years allotted to him. And he must try to free himself from these exaggerating and distorting mental emotional processes that lure him on to a way of life that is inconsistent with every simple fact that we know to be true. If we are willing to sit down and think through our resources, then we can lay plans. We can view life as a challenge, but not as an ogre that is determined to destroy us. We can play life skillfully as a master gamester plays his game. We cannot win this chess game of life in the sense that we are going to ultimately attain victory over living. We can, however, win to the degree of having a useful, comfortable, and reasonable life while we are here. Pressures nearly always arise from unreasonable and inordinate demands on the part of the individual. His desires for things which he cannot or will not earn. And then the various disgruntlements that arise from his lack of adjustment to his own standard of demands. Putting it this way, the individual, to solve pressure, must become more in himself or demand less. There are two ways of satisfying need. One is to have more, the other is to need less. Diogenes was the master of this equation. Today we have the right, perhaps more than at any other time in history, to make demands upon life if we are willing to meet these demands by an adequate expression of personal resolve. If we wish a certain measure of success, we have a right to strive for it. But we have no right to expect this success by bluff or subterfuge. The bluffer and the deceiver are immediately tied into terrible tension problems because they are insincere and insecure. So the person who wishes a life of rich fulfillment must plan and build according to the pattern of his own hopes, beliefs, and convictions. He must find ways to fit himself for the things that he wants to do. Years ago, I knew a young man who, by a strange fluke, was given a job, an important and critical job, in an airplane factory as a designing engineer. He had never taken a course in engineering. He had never taken a course in draftsmanship. And these were the two subjects he had to use all the time. He was a good bluffer. He was able to keep this job without anyone realizing or finding out that he did not know for nearly 10 years, simply by carefully copying the work of others, by studying a little, by asking for a few judicious questions at the right moment. He was able to maintain this very difficult position, a position which paid him very well, and it demanded in him a new standard of living which he did not wish to give up. In 10 years, however, he fell apart. He could not continue the bluff any further. He was hopelessly wrecked, nervously and emotionally. And had he not stopped when he did, would probably have ended mentally very ill. He could not keep on bluffing. The responsibility, the fear, the anxiety hanging over him all the time, for he never knew from moment to moment when some question would be asked, some situation would arise in which his bluff would be discovered. So he could not stand the strain. And to most of us, this is to a measure our problem. Well, we're not bluffing as he did. We are inadequate and we know it. We are never sure when an emergency will arise which will overwhelm our reserve and our knowledge. We are never sure when we will no longer be able to continue the courses which seem essential to us at the moment. We have to get past this, or we will never get past tensions. Because tensions, with their anxieties, with their debilitating results, arise from this inner realization that we are not secure in the things that we are doing. To meet this natural problem, we know that today experts in nearly every field are going back to school every year. The graduate engineer, graduating at the top of his class, could not pass the final examination for a class 2 years later than his own. Constant change, constant modification, the pressures increasing continuously, everything becoming more complicated, and the individual merely becoming older and more tired. Youth, however, cannot take over either. Youth today, as research is showing, is graduating from college completely exhausted in terms of nervous resources. The average college